Most people don't realize they're being played because they never question who built the game. They walk into rooms designed to control them. They speak in conversations shaped by others. They react, defend, apologize, believing they're making choices when in truth they're following invisible rules written by someone else. But what if you stopped playing the game and started designing it? This isn't about manipulation in the shallow sense. It's about silent dominance, about mastering the battlefield of perception, influence, and control without ever raising your voice. In this world, the real power doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being the one who sets the conditions before the first move is made. The strategist becomes irrelevant. The tactician burns out. But the architect, the one who controls access, timing, environment, and information, outlasts them all. And the best part, no one even realizes they're standing on a board you built. If you're tired of reacting, if you're done being predictable, it's time to step behind the curtain and learn how to control the frame, the narrative, and the outcome without ever being seen as the threat. Welcome to the highest form of power, architect-level influence. Trust is the most seductive illusion in the game of power and the most fatal. It promises comfort. It whispers security. It wraps betrayal in velvet and hands it to you with a smile. From childhood, we are taught to trust our friends, to lean on our partners, to believe that loyalty is a virtue. But in reality, the higher you rise in life, whether in business, leadership, or influence, the colder it becomes. Not because the world is cruel for the sake of cruelty, but because loyalty is rarely rooted in principle. It is rooted in utility. And when your usefulness expires, so does their affection. Think of the times you confided in someone thinking they were safe. You shared your fears, your doubts, your secrets. And when the tide turned, those very confessions became ammunition. They weren't protecting you. They were storing your weaknesses like weapons. Not everyone does this consciously. But the truth is, human beings are wired to act in their own interest. If supporting you benefits them, they'll stay. If betraying you serves them better, they'll strike. This isn't darkness, it's design. And until you see that clearly, you will always be vulnerable to manipulation disguised as friendship. Even those who seem closest, your romantic partner, your mentor, your best friend, are not immune to this dynamic. In fact, the people closest to you are often the most dangerous. They know your soft spots. They've earned your trust. And because they have access to your inner world, they're in the perfect position to exploit it. Not every betrayal is explosive. Sometimes it's silent. A piece of information leaked. A silent moment when you needed support. A decision made without your knowledge. These are not accidents, they are calculations masked as forgetfulness or oversight. Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago. Never place your faith in friendship when power is at stake. The ruler who believes in the loyalty of others is already losing his crown. Why? Because loyalty is emotional, but power is strategic. One is built on assumption, the other on awareness. And in today's world where perception shifts with a headline and reputations can be destroyed in a tweet, trust is no longer strength. It is a liability. When you give your trust freely, you hand others the keys to your kingdom. And most won't even know they've betrayed you because they never saw it as betrayal. They saw it as survival. So what does power demand instead? Vigilance, discernment, emotional detachment. It doesn't mean becoming a recluse or living in fear. It means learning to observe people without projecting your hopes onto them. It means giving slowly, testing often, and trusting rarely. Let loyalty prove itself over time, not through declarations, but through consistent action, especially when you're no longer useful to them. That's when true character is revealed. This clarity is not meant to make you cold. It's meant to make you calm. When you stop expecting loyalty, you stop being wounded by disloyalty. When you stop handing out your trust like a gift, you begin to guard it like a weapon. Power belongs to those who move with precision, not with hope. And trust in this game is not a virtue, it's a tool. Use it when necessary, but never let it blind you. Because once you see that trust is not a given, but a calculated risk, you gain something stronger than security, you gain self-reliance. And from that foundation, no betrayal can break you, because you never assumed they were loyal. You only observed whether they acted like it, and when they didn't, you didn't fall. You adjusted. Fake friends don't stab you in the back, they disarm you with a smile first. They don't shout their betrayal, they whisper it. And the most dangerous part, they look like allies. In the game of power, your enemies rarely wear masks of malice. They wear the face of companionship, of loyalty, of shared laughter. And that's what makes them lethal. It's not the stranger who can bring you down. It's the one who knows your routines, your blind spots, and your trust patterns. That's why Machiavellian strategy doesn't just encourage awareness, it demands it. You don't need to attack your enemies. You only need to see them. And once you see them, you don't expose them, you outmaneuver them. Quietly. The first skill is observation. Real power doesn't react, it reads. You must train your emotional radar to detect the micro signals most people ignore. Does someone constantly praise you in public but dismiss your ideas in private? Do they ask questions that seem supportive but subtly discredit your ambitions? Do they delay in defending you when others criticize you? These aren't coincidences, they're breadcrumbs. And when followed, they lead directly to quiet betrayal. But your job isn't to confront them. It's to collect the evidence in silence. Emotional outbursts only give your enemies confirmation of your weakness. The moment you accuse someone, they defend themselves, discredit you, and make you look paranoid. But if you document their patterns and adjust behavior quietly, you gain control of the narrative without even speaking. Instead of calling them out, begin to withdraw. Not with bitterness, with calculation. Reassign them to the outer circle of your life. Limit their access to your information, your vulnerabilities, and your future plans. Feed them small, false details if needed, and watch what leaks. Your silence becomes the trap. When someone is used to having your trust, your sudden distance disturbs them. They begin to panic. They try harder to be close to regain access to test you. And in that scramble, they reveal themselves even more. In the Machiavellian doctrine, silence is not just golden, it's surgical. The absence of explanation, the quiet shift in dynamic, the subtle reordering of roles, these are weapons more effective than confrontation. They don't just neutralize a threat, they unmask it. And once unmasked, the fake friend no longer holds power over you. They've become irrelevant. No war was declared, no drama ensued, but the threat was removed. This quiet strategy isn't cowardice, it's dominance. Because real power moves without noise. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need the crowd to cheer. It simply acts with precision. You don't need to destroy a fake friend, you just need to stop feeding them. Starve their access, starve their influence. Let their position in your life fade like background static. And as they wonder why they no longer matter, you're already building with people who've passed your tests, those whose loyalty was revealed not through their words, but through their silence when it mattered most. Ultimately, this is not about paranoia. It's about protection. You are not meant to walk through life surrounded by people who perform loyalty while secretly envying your strength. You are meant to walk with clarity, with discernment, with the ability to see who's for you and who's simply using proximity to drain your energy. Power belongs to those who know how to reorganize their circle without needing a scene. And when betrayal surfaces, your calm, not your rage, will be what disarms them. Because in a world obsessed with exposure and drama, the quiet player holds the real control. He doesn't yell. He observes. He doesn't strike first, but he always strikes last. And when he does, there's no resistance left to stop him. Power doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to the calmest one. In a world driven by emotional reactions, anger, fear, envy, validation, seeking the man who controls his emotions becomes untouchable. Emotional control isn't the absence of feeling, it's the discipline to decide when, where, and how your emotions serve your strategy. It's not about being numb, it's about being calculated. When others lash out, you observe. When others panic, you plan. And when others seek to provoke you, they find only silence. Because you've trained yourself not to react, but to respond. And in that gap between stimulus and action lies your greatest power. Fake friends, manipulative colleagues, toxic partners, they all share one thing in common. They test you through emotion. They want to see if they can provoke you. Can they trigger your insecurity? Can they make you explain yourself, defend yourself, lose your balance? That's where most people lose the game. They respond impulsively, revealing their emotional blueprint to someone who was only trying to map it. But when you don't take the bait, when you stay centered, even as they weaponize tone or silence or passive aggression, something unsettling happens. You become unreadable. And the unreadable person becomes untouchable. To control your emotions is to control the pace of the game. It's to dictate the energy in the room without saying a word. When others expect retaliation and receive indifference, they spiral. When they expect panic and are met with calm, they lose their sense of control. This isn't just strategy, it's psychological warfare. Because in silence, you mirror people back to themselves. Their anger echoes, their envy is exposed, and your calm becomes the reflection they can't manipulate. You become the constant in a room full of variables. This is why the Machiavellian never explains, never begs, never reacts. He understands that the moment you emotionally invest in chaos, you've already been pulled into someone else's game. But when you choose your emotions like weapons measured, purposeful, deliberate, you flip the dynamic. You don't just defend your peace, you weaponize it. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Did you feel the heat rise in your chest? The urge to defend yourself, prove yourself, correct the record. That impulse is natural, but it's also your weakness. Emotional reactivity is predictable, and what is predictable is easy to control. Every outburst is data. Every emotional display is a crack in your armor. But when you sit in discomfort without flinching, when you let someone insult you and you don't blink, you shift the entire interaction in your favor. Because now they're exposed and you're in control. Emotional control is the silent engine behind influence. It's how you keep your reputation intact while others self-destruct trying to damage it. It's how you create mystique dominance and calm authority in a room of chaos. It's how you hold power without ever needing to raise your voice. You don't need to intimidate when you're immune to provocation. You don't need to defend when nothing rattles you. That kind of presence, grounded, alert, detached, is what truly commands respect. And this isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. You feel everything, but you act on nothing impulsively. You delay the reaction. You study the pattern. You respond in a way that not only protects your position, but advances it. Every emotional restraint becomes an act of power. Every moment of silence becomes a layer of mystery. And every measured word you choose lands with the weight of someone who doesn't speak to be heard, but to be obeyed. Because in the end, power doesn't scream, it whispers. And those who control emotion don't just survive, they shape reality. They walk into storms and remain the still point. And in doing so, they become the eye of the hurricane, the one place where no one else can stand and no one else dares challenge. In the world of power, connections are tools, not trophies. The people around you are not family, not soulmates, not lifelong companions. They are variables, assets, temporary alignments of interest. The sooner you realize this, the more resilient and powerful you become. Because emotional attachment in power dynamics is a dangerous indulgence. It clouds your vision. It makes you hesitate when you should act. It binds you to people who may have outlived their usefulness. Sentimentality is a luxury the powerful cannot afford. Every alliance you build must be based on strategy, not sentiment. You don't surround yourself with people who make you feel good. You surround yourself with people who make your moves more effective. People who deliver. People who earn their access, not expect it. And when their value fades, when their goals shift, when their loyalty becomes uncertain, you don't cling, you replace. Not with cruelty, but with clarity. A Machiavellian mind doesn't destroy relationships out of spite. It relocates them to the background when their role has expired. This is the art of rotation. No one becomes indispensable. No one is too sacred to be questioned. A strategic network is constantly pruned like a living organism. When a connection turns stagnant, when an ally becomes a liability, you must act without guilt. Too many people hold on to loyal friends who no longer serve their growth. Why? Because they mistake longevity for value. But in the game of power, duration means nothing without alignment. You're not building a family, you're building an empire. Let others hold on to fading friendships out of nostalgia. You, however, must build with intention. Every person close to you should serve a purpose, and every connection should have defined boundaries. If someone betrays you, you don't retaliate, you withdraw access. You limit what they can see, what they can hear, what they can influence. You starve their importance. And in doing so, you send a message to the rest of your circle: loyalty is observed, not assumed. Relationships are not protected by feelings, but maintained through relevance and contribution. A strategic network is also fluid by design. You don't overinvest in any single relationship. You diversify your alliances. You test loyalty quietly and often. You grant small favors to measure gratitude. You offer partial truths to track how fast they echo. You rotate tasks to see who can adapt under pressure. And you never let anyone feel untouchable, because the moment someone sees themselves as permanent, they stop trying to earn their place. And worse, they begin to act as if they own a piece of your success. Never let emotions keep liabilities in your inner circle. And never mistake temporary usefulness for lifelong trust. There's no room for wishful thinking in this architecture of power. When someone's ambition becomes incompatible with yours, you sever ties cleanly, calmly, and without explanation. A strategic disconnection is more powerful than any argument, because it shows control. It shows restraint. And most importantly, it shows that your loyalty lies with your purpose, not with personalities. Your empire must be built on structure, not sentiment, on outcomes, not emotional attachment. When you build your network this way, betrayal becomes irrelevant, because no one holds a key to your destruction. Everyone is replaceable. Everyone is being observed, and everyone knows it. This doesn't create fear, it creates clarity. It removes entitlement. It establishes your circle as a meritocracy, not a comfort zone. So remember this: you are not here to collect people. You are here to position them. Move pieces as needed. Redesign your circle as often as the mission demands. And never fall in love with a connection that can't evolve with you. Because power is not preserved by holding on, it's preserved by letting go. Power is not what you hold in your hands, it's what others believe you hold. In the realm of influence, perception is reality. It doesn't matter who you are. It matters what they think you are. And that's where real control begins, not with brute force or loud declarations, but with the silent shaping of narrative. The most powerful individuals in history didn't win through direct confrontation, they won by creating the illusion of inevitability. They planted whispers, staged gestures, dropped symbols like breadcrumbs, and allowed others to draw the conclusions they designed. When people think they understand you, they stop questioning you. But when they can't quite define you, they obsess over you. Your ability to control perception is your greatest invisible weapon. What you say, what you post, what you wear, the rooms you enter, the people you're seen with, it all becomes part of your mythology. And the more deliberate you are with these symbols, the stronger the narrative becomes. A subtle quote on your wall, a rare appearance at a gathering, a favor granted in silence, then withdrawn without reason. These things matter more than loud proclamations or obvious moves. They spark curiosity. They stir uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds influence because people fear what they can't predict. Never reveal everything. That's not mystique, it's recklessness. The moment people see your full playbook, they begin to calculate against it. But when you allow only fragments of truth to surface, when you deliver contradictions on purpose, one statement here, one conflicting act there, you create cognitive friction. Your opponents begin to question themselves, not you. Are they misreading you? Misjudging your intent? Is this a trap that confusion is your armor? It buys you space. It buys you time, and it ensures you always remain one move ahead. In this world, information is a currency more valuable than money. But unlike cash, you don't spend it, you leak it. Sparingly, strategically. You feed different people different truths and track what gets repeated. You watch who shares what, when, and with whom. Not because you want gossip, but because the way people handle information reveals who they really are. The loyal stay silent. The opportunists can't help themselves. The envious distort everything to sound like betrayal. That's not drama, it's data. And while others obsess over being liked, admired, followed, you aim to be unreadable. You don't need to be understood. You need to be respected, or feared, or both. And those outcomes begin with how you position yourself in every room, in every sentence, in every interaction. Power does not chase attention. Power commands it by being rare, precise, and unpredictable. Even your silence should be strategic. A pause in a conversation, a look that lingers half a second too long, a refusal to comment when others expect a response. These create more speculation than any explanation ever could. In that space where others fill in the blanks of your behavior, you gain something deeper than approval. You gain psychological dominance, because now they're not reacting to what you said. They're reacting to what they think you meant. And when people project meaning onto your actions, you become the author of a story they don't even know they're reading. So control the narrative. Set the tone. Use symbolism, spacing, and scarcity to shape how others perceive you. Let them believe the myth you want them to follow, even if it's an illusion. Because influence doesn't require truth. It only requires consistency. And when you become the one who defines the context, you become the one who defines the outcome. Reality belongs to the one who controls the frame. You don't need to overpower people. You only need to make them believe you already have. And once they believe it, the game is yours. Before you can lead anyone, before you can dominate a room, dismantle a threat, or command respect, you must first master yourself. Because no strategy, no manipulation, no carefully crafted persona will ever be sustainable if your own mind remains undisciplined. Power that isn't grounded in self-awareness becomes reactive. Influence without inner control becomes fragile. And the truth is, most people don't fail because of outside threats. They collapse from within. They overreact, they misjudge, they project insecurity into relationships, chase validation in conflict, and call it strength. But in the Machiavellian world, that's weakness disguised as willpower. True dominance begins internally. Self-mastery is the quiet power few talk about, but everyone feels. It's the ability to sit in discomfort without flinching, to watch betrayal unfold and not lose composure, to receive praise and remain unmoved. It's emotional insulation. When others need reassurance, you stay still. When others beg for clarity, you remain ambiguous. Not because you're withholding, but because you're centered. Nothing they do touches what you haven't already resolved within, and that terrifies them. People expect you to react, to panic, to justify, to plead. But when you don't, you disrupt the entire dynamic. Now they're playing by your tempo, not theirs. You become powerful not by controlling others, but by controlling the space between stimulus and response. Someone insults you. You analyze, not defend. A friend betrays you. You detach, not collapse. An opportunity slips through. You reframe, not chase. Every reaction you don't have becomes a signal of your mental depth. While others are driven by emotion, rage, jealousy, fear, you move with intention, not coldness, clarity. You've trained your emotions to serve your purpose, not sabotage it. But this doesn't come easily. It requires discipline. It means auditing your day every night. What triggered you? What tested you? What revealed a weakness you hadn't noticed? It means acknowledging the parts of yourself that still seek approval, still fear abandonment, still crave control, and then dismantling them. You cannot lead if you're still being led by your unexamined needs. You cannot demand loyalty from others if you're not first loyal to your own principles. Self-mastery is a lifetime campaign. It's not glamorous. It doesn't earn applause, but it earns something far more powerful: stability. And from that foundation, you begin to see clearly. You spot manipulation before it arrives. You detect patterns others miss. You feel the shift in tone before the words are even spoken, because your mind isn't clouded. Your perception isn't distorted by ego. It's grounded in stillness. That stillness becomes your edge. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't over-explain. Your presence becomes your statement. People feel your energy shift a room not because you speak more, but because you need less. You've cultivated emotional independence, and that's rare. In a world addicted to reactions, silence becomes your superpower. You watch, you wait, and you act only when it's advantageous, not when you're provoked. And perhaps most importantly, self-mastery makes you incorruptible. No bribe, no threat, no rumor can shake a man who has already made peace with himself. He cannot be blackmailed because he hides nothing from himself. He cannot be humiliated because his self-worth isn't external. And he cannot be manipulated because he doesn't outsource his clarity. In this state, your power becomes permanent, not loud, but lasting, not visible, but undeniable. So before you try to control the narrative, the group, the enemy, control the one person who will always follow you into every battlefield, yourself. Because the man who has conquered himself walks through fire untouched. He leads not because he demands to, but because no one else can move like him. And when the world watches unsure of what drives him, they don't see calculation, they see calm. And that calm is what changes everything. Power isn't just about who you are, it's about who they think you might be. In a world where people crave certainty, being unreadable is one of the most intimidating forms of control. When others can't define you, they can't prepare for you. They don't know how to please you, how to manipulate you, or how to oppose you. You become the variable that can't be solved. And that's not by accident, it's by design. The Machiavellian mind knows this. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. But when you shift personas, when you master the art of strategic ambiguity, you turn confusion into leverage and perception into power. You don't need to be dishonest. You just need to be versatile. You wear masks not to deceive, but to direct. You show different versions of yourself depending on the environment, not out of weakness, but out of control. To the ambitious, you appear humble. To the dominant, you appear loyal. To the lost, you appear wise. And in every space, you reflect back exactly what gives you the upper hand. Not because you're fake, but because you're fluid. While others cling to static identities, you evolve like water, reshaping yourself to fit the terrain. This is not manipulation in the cheap sense, it's identity strategy. You must never allow people to think they fully understand you. If they do, they will assume they've mapped you. And what is mapped can be attacked. What is predictable can be defeated. But when your words hold double meanings, when your actions contradict expectations, when your silence speaks louder than your explanations, people are forced to second-guess everything. And the more they analyze you, the less they act against you. Their hesitation becomes your opening. Think about how this plays out in leadership. The boss who is always consistent becomes easy to challenge. But the one who can shift from composed to assertive, from generous to distant, keeps everyone alert. No one knows exactly where they stand, and that discomfort breeds respect. In relationships, the partner who constantly reveals their inner world becomes emotionally exposed, but the one who selectively opens up, who shows depth without giving everything away, becomes addictive. Mystery builds tension. Tension builds power. To become unpredictable is not to become chaotic, it's to become calculated. Every shift in tone, every contradiction, every layered sentence must serve a purpose. You aren't inconsistent. You're intentionally varied. You don't abandon your core values, but you express them through a range of identities, each designed to protect your sovereignty. There's the mask of the humble student worn to learn from mentors before surpassing them. The mask of the noble leader used to justify necessary cruelty. The mask of the devoted friend leveraged to gather information, and all of it orchestrated from the same core control. But here's the emotional truth: this kind of adaptability demands self-awareness. You can't shapeshift effectively if you don't know who you are beneath it all. Your masks must be tools, not escapes. Because if you lose yourself in the persona, you become a puppet to your own performance. But when your identity is a conscious creation, not a reactive impulse, you're not just playing roles, you're writing the script. And in that script, others are characters, but never authors. Let them try to define you. Let them argue over your intent. Let them confuse your silence for vulnerability, your kindness for weakness, your contradictions for instability. While they scramble to make sense of your complexity, you're already 10 steps ahead, calm, composed, and unknowable. Because when no one can predict your next move, no one can stop it. That is the art. That is the weapon. Not just to be powerful, but to be unreadable. to shift personas, not to deceive but to dominate the game they never realized you were playing from the start. There are two kinds of people in every power dynamic: those who play the game and those who design the board. Most people spend their entire lives reacting, chasing validation, avoiding offense, trying to stay afloat in conversations and relationships they don't control. They measure their worth by how others treat them. They adjust their behavior to fit into rooms they don't own. But the Machiavellian doesn't move like that. He doesn't play a game someone else built. He becomes the architect, the one who controls the terrain, the tempo, and the terms of every engagement. To master the battlefield of influence, you don't just learn tactics. You design environments that make your tactics inevitable. You control the meeting space. You choose the timing. You decide who speaks and who listens. You manipulate context until everyone operates inside the world you've crafted. And the beauty of it is, they don't even realize it's happening. They think they're making choices. They think they're negotiating. But they're playing inside your frame. That's not manipulation in the theatrical sense. It's engineering. Silent, precise, untraceable. This is how true power works. Not by shouting orders or demanding loyalty, but by creating conditions where others naturally align with your will. You don't force people, you design around them. You fragment information, giving different pieces to different people. You set up contradictions to create confusion. You make loyalty appear as the only logical option, while disloyalty becomes self-destruction. You don't attack your rivals, you isolate them, weaken their alliances, drain their relevance until they remove themselves. And all of this happens before a single confrontation. Even online, the architect moves differently. He doesn't overshare. He plants subtle signals, cryptic posts, calculated silences, strategic absences that stir speculation. He knows that people fill gaps with stories, and whoever controls the narrative controls the outcome. While others chase attention, he lets attention chase him. Because in the digital world, mystery is magnetism, and scarcity builds demand. You don't become influential by screaming, you become influential by becoming a question no one can fully answer. But to build this kind of control, you must think in systems, not just strategies. Every alliance you make, every rumor you allow to circulate, every appearance you stage must serve multiple purposes. A gift is not just generosity, it's surveillance. A promotion is not just reward, it's leverage. A compliment is not just kindness, it's a test. When you act with duality, what the world sees and what only you know. That duality creates layers of perception, and those layers give you cover distance and insulation. The architect is not frantic. He is not desperate. He is not constantly adjusting based on how people feel about him. He builds structures that outlast emotion. He rotates allies, renews strategies, redesigns circles of influence without becoming emotionally entangled. He doesn't defend his position. He reinforces it through myth, ritual, and repetition. He knows that power must appear inevitable to be obeyed. So he crafts not just moves, but meaning. Not just actions, but legacy. This mindset separates the manipulators from the strategists. Anyone can learn tactics, but few can build frameworks that govern the behavior of others without detection. That's the final stage of psychological warfare. You don't just win. You shape the reality in which others lose. And they thank you for it. So rise beyond the need to prove yourself. Stop reacting. Start engineering. Let your words echo with hidden messages. Let your movements trigger questions. Let your absence speak volumes. And above all, design every space you enter so that even your silence becomes an order. That is what it means to be the architect of power, not simply a player on the board, but the one who designed where every piece would fall long before the game began. The most powerful shift you can make in life is moving from participant to architect. That means no longer reacting to the world, but designing the spaces, relationships, and outcomes you move through. In every interaction, people are subtly being influenced by tone, by timing, by context. Most are unaware, but once you realize that influence isn't random, it's engineered, you begin to take control of your environment, your perception, and your future. The lesson is simple but transformative. Don't just play the game, control the board. Choose the time and place of difficult conversations. Control what people know and when. Create environments where your presence carries weight, not because of how loud you speak, but because of the way you manage access, silence, and attention. Fragment information to test loyalty. Use absence to build desire. Let people question your intentions while unknowingly stepping into your design. This mindset makes you harder to manipulate, harder to read, and impossible to ignore. It teaches you not just how to protect your power, but how to multiply it. And remember, power isn't always about domination. It's about direction. You don't have to control everyone, just control the conditions. If this message speaks to the strategist inside, you don't just scroll, subscribe, hit like, and share this with someone who needs to stop reacting and start designing. Your future doesn't just happen. You build it, brick by brick, move by move, silence by silence.